Hi, Misha here, and happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully this year, 2021, everyone's able to be with family, or maybe not be with family if that's the better alternative. Either way, I sincerely hope everyone's having their best Thanksgiving this year. And it has been a year. 2020 was its own thing. 2021, for me personally, has been a year of many highs and many lows. And I think sometimes we tend to focus on the lows more than the highs. And the whole purpose of Thanksgiving is to do just that. Give thanks for what we do have and accept what we don't. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. The top 10 guns that I'm thankful for in 2021. And on the table, we have 8. That's because really my top 2 I want to talk about individually. So stay tuned to the end of the video because it's going to be a little different. So with that, let's give some thanks for 2021. Yeah, I know, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? SG 552. She held up. And the year really did begin with a large batch from Switzerland. You saw me shooting this SG 552 Commando. These are actually supposed to be in towards the end of 2020, but because nothing went the way it was supposed to that year, they ended up coming in January, February of 2021. So this would be one of the earliest guns we reviewed this year that was new. And of course we had the PE90s as well, and Jay did a couple of major videos on that. He decided to finally take the plunge and delve into Swiss ownership this year. And the 552 is really cool because Switzerland, be it SiG San or SiG Sauer AG now, hasn't made this model since 2000. Well, they haven't had it in their catalog since 2008, give or take. Realistically, they stopped making parts before that. But back during a travel a couple of years ago, the owner of JDI found a handful of 552 parts in the basement of SiG when they were cleaning up, and he angled to get them built for the US market. Only about 50, a little more, 53, 54, came in. Roughly half long barrel and half short barrel like this one. Now the downside, they were the modern pick rail. To be fair, late production 552s were pick rail. But I put on a clamp diopter on mine and a fixed front, but this is easy to replace. And it has the more modern Rotex, I think it's Mark V flash hider, and typical gray-green with steel lower. Even though this is mostly of interest to collectors because the 553 is pretty much superior, I do enjoy shooting it. The only problem is replacement parts. I will say, after shooting it, I feel like the 552 maybe has slightly less felt recoil, or maybe just less muzzle climb. It was a very gentle shooting gun, and the 553 is no hog to begin with, so it was a lot of fun to shoot. So that was kind of how the year began. Polish Burial. I decided to let this represent all the burials because we really got lucky. The project has been in the works for years now, and I was getting a little despondent. But finally, in February, we ended up with the first, which was the mini burial pistol, which both Jay and I reviewed, giving our own opinions. And then in March, it was followed by the Barrel 7.62, 7.62 by 39, and finally the Barrel 5.56. Essentially, the Archer returns finally after almost a full decade. Quality is top notch with these FB Radom guns, and they're military grade. The Polish military uses the Barrel as the WZ-96, and also the Mini Barrel as the carbine. And the 7.62 version has been used primarily by Nigeria, who has a few thousand plus a site license. We've covered a lot of Polish guns. I will say the WBP Fox was Jay's and is quite possibly also my favorite 7.62 by 39 AK as a shooter. But I'm really impressed with how this Barrel is shooting too. So they're really neck and neck. And speaking of March, a lot would end up happening. On the positive, I got more surplus guns in the spring. This is the FN 1922. I've owned a few of these in the past, but a friend owned this for several years, and he finally decided to trade it in, sell it to me. I just like it because it's a actual military style, and it shoots a common cartridge, 7.65 Browning. I was really happy to get that. I love surplus guns. Also, a gentleman reached out to me and offered a handful of guns on trade for some Swiss guns. And I ended up with something I never thought I would really own. This is a VKT L35 Lottie. Now, in previous old videos, you've seen my Lottie, but this one is a early production made right after the Winter War. It has early features, and it's just super cool. In fact, the guy traded in a total of 3 Lotties, 2 Finnish and 1 Swedish. And he also traded in a gun I'd been wanting for a while, a Sauer 38H. I've owned those in the past, but it seems like every Sauer 38H I came across ended up having a mechanical issue. Just really not great luck. Also, Jay's luck, well, he got into surplus, mostly bolt actions, a few handguns, a couple of years ago, essentially wanting one of each from the major nations. And his luck wasn't running great with surplus guns. Type 99.
That felt like a 22.
Yeah. I'd check your bore.
Yeah, something didn't go right there.
Nope.
Click, no bang. I wonder if they removed the firing pin. I bet they did.
Let's find out. Yeah, I can't really blame him. He kind of ran across the string there. He also had an infield number 4 that needed some parts replaced. I really did feel bad. He just kind of had a string, but that's the nature of surplus. And as many have pointed out, we do have diverging interests. It's sad, but that's just life. I really do love history. Obviously, I do like modern guns too. I kind of just like all guns, and I kind of go through phases, as does everyone. For example, Jay was getting more into competition shooting with a CZ Shadow, and also getting more in revolver shooting. AB-10.
So Misha, may not have been shooting it correctly, so I'll try to shoot it correctly and see if I can get it to cycle.
You're the Tech 9 Spurt.
Click, no bang. Live round. Clear. ZZ75 Shadow 2. Clear.
Alright, I'll give this a try. Yes, I have small hands.
And back on half cock.
That's right. I'm used to Webleys. Get out of there. And finally, in April, he took a new job, which ended up with lots of hours. And that's when we had to announce in May that he was going to have to step away from the channel. And as we posted, it absolutely wasn't a personal argument or anything like that. We've remained in contact. It's just that's how life goes sometimes. We started the channel very much as a lark 10 years ago. And for the first several years, he never appeared on camera. He started coming in about 2016 maybe. And we started doing the Q&As and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. And because I like doing stuff with people, I'd rather it be a group project. But you know, it was time for him to move on, and I think both of us are feeling pretty confident and happy with our gun collections. Now, as a dealer, I will continue to probably get new guns in the store to talk with you about. But if Jay's not buying guns, which he really hasn't bought any this whole year, he's not going to have a whole lot new to talk about. This on top of his new job and family obligations meant that even though we hoped maybe he was just going to step away temporarily, it looks like it's going to be more of a long-term thing. However, you'll probably see him from time to time. He'll probably pop in, surprise you. But, as the old saying goes, when God closes a door, he opens a window, or a cellar, or a chimney, or something like that. My interest in firearms certainly didn't begin with Jay. At that point, when we met, I was already in FFL. No, I grew up with guns, which we'll talk about more at the end of the video. Kind of went away from them in high school time, but got back into them in college. And started shooting to blow off steam, especially in grad school. And I had several shooting buddies back then. And you know how after everyone leaves college, you lose touch. That happens to all of us. Now, I had a couple of friends that I did stay in touch with for years after. But eventually, 2 decades go by and things happen. Well, just about the time that Jay was telling me he was going to have to step aside, an old college friend kind of moved back in. And he'd been working in the gun industry, totally different field from me, but in the industry. And he was leaving that job to kind of go freelancing, which meant, well, we ended up with J-Ro starting to help out mid-year. But, well, when we used to shoot, we didn't record, and it's been at least 15 years since we went to the range together. And, the thing with Jay, we had cues worked out and just had a smooth running thing. Anytime you bring in someone new, it gets a little difficult. Plus, remember, I don't really have a way to edit videos as such. So, I wouldn't say it was a rocky start, but maybe a few awkward moments.
All right, we're rolling. What you got?
Stop it there for a second.
Huh?
Stop for a second.
Oh. Tell me that again.
Start over.
Yeah. I'm rolling.
No, just stop it for a second.
Huh?
Stop for a second. All right, we're going to let J-Ro try the sapper now. Yeah, after that trip, we ended up getting him a pair of electronic ear pro. He was just using old muffs and plugs before. That made things a lot better. And one of the first guns that we took out was this. I had a B+T TP9. Actually, I had two of them over the years, and Jay talked me out of it a couple of years ago. I thought I'd want to replace it one day, and the gun that kind of caught my attention was the APC-9. But the price was quite a bit higher than they used to be, so I thought if I'm going to spend the money, it needs to be exactly what I want, as close to the military SCW as you could get. And it just so happened that B+T released 333 commemorative edition SCW guns, complete with factory installed adjustable brace instead of a stock. Otherwise, they come with the aim point, they come with the flip sights, military style, including taking the B+T mags. Even have the tri-lug barrel. I really wanted one of these, but they were way too much money. Brand new, but a good customer. He knows who he is. He can shout himself out in the comments. We ended up working a trade, and I kind of felt bad because even though he proposed the trade, and when it happened, he actually sent an email saying, "I love you." So yeah, but then through no fault of his or mine, his end kind of went south. I kind of feel bad about it, but that's just how deals work out sometimes. Ended up with this and took it out with J-Row and ran rounds through it, and also started to go back out to my family's cabin.
Here, start over again.
This thing is remarkably badass.
Is that your Swiss thingy?
One of them. How am I doing on aiming there?
Okay, let's come to the right just a little bit. Down a bit. Down more. More. Okay, that's pretty safe. We're rolling. You can make it hot whenever you want.
Alrighty, it's ready to go. So let's have the first shots out of this B+T. And she worked. No surprise.
So how do you tell when you're empty?
You stop it there.
So we all really liked how this shot, and I was kind of happy to have another B+T back in the stable, and was able to trade into it, where I still had money, of course, in it, but at a somewhat reasonable price. We'll see how it goes, but actually happy to get it back out again. Speaking of kind of old as new, Jay has owned a PS90, but even though I was one of the earliest purchasers of this gun, back in 2006, I sold my first version when I got married, and then picked up another with the GI style optic back in, I think it was 2010, 2011, when CD&N had them cheap. But then when the prices went up again, I ended up selling it. A lot of it had to do with the 5.7 ammo being hard to get. I tried making myself happy with the rail version, but it just wasn't what I wanted. But again this year, because of Swiss guns, a customer offered a trade for a basically new old stock with the updated Secret Service style black reticle optic, and I just couldn't say no. I missed having one of these. It's such a weird, cool, unique gun that even though it's expensive, even though it fires hard to get ammo, expensive ammo, the magazine, the sight, the overall layout, it's just too cool. I needed another one, and when the opportunity came, I grabbed it. And actually, J-Row remembered my original one from way back in the day, too. He got to shoot it. Here's a clip of that.
PS90.
It's such a weird gun.
It's been a few years, huh?
Alright, there's There's a few left in here. I'll let Haley finish them off.
You hit it.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun. We only had a couple of 100 rounds of ammo, so not many clips from that trip. Hopefully the ammo will become at least more available. But it was good to get that back out. It is a lot of fun. And moving on, one of the most famous, dare I say infamous rifles that came in around March of 2021. The long talked about and awaited Hungarian FEG HD18. And now, I didn't think and say a whole lot about these back in the day because I wasn't sure if they'd happen, and I didn't know what the hell was really going on because Hungary never made a Dragunov. They used them, but they purchased them from Russia to use as DMRs. Anyway, I got a phone call, asked if I'd like one. I said, yeah, but the price is too high. And ended up grabbing one. This was before all the internet hullabaloo even got started. And at that point, I wasn't going to just call and cancel the order because, frankly, it had already been done. And also, on a personal level, I really wanted a Dragunov. That's because when I lived in Russia, Tigers were available. And when we got married, my wife and I, one of the long-standing jokes we had here was for her to buy me a Dragunov, an SVD, a Tiger, as a wedding gift. Of course, in Russia, back then, they were about $700-800 without an optic, $1,000, $1,200 with. She didn't realize they weren't that priced in the USA. So it was a joke because when I showed her what they were going for even 15 years ago, yeah, no, that wasn't happening. And it frankly was a pipe dream. But it was kind of just annoying because over in Russia, you can put hands on one of these very easily. So I remembered having one there. The problem with the US Tigers, they don't have the full-length barrel. It's cut down to 20.5 inches. These, like the ones in Russia, at least the majority you find, have the full-length Dragunov barrel. We'll call it 24 inches just to be, rounding. Of course, they come in with the horrible Hungarian-style device and furniture. I actually picked up this set, and it came as a set, polymer handguard and wood stock, from Russian military parts. And recently, I received a bipod, Russian bipod, in the mail, thanks to Flonder. He also got me a polymer stock, which I think I'm going to hang out with the wood. I kind of like the transitional look, but I've got a polymer, just in case. He even also sent me the bayonet lug front sight device with long flash hider, which I'm definitely going to keep in the pouch probably, but I really like kind of the short flash hider look. I think mostly because it reminds me of the Tiger I had in Russia. You can always change them out. So all the scuttlebutt aside, all the politics and all that aside, it is a cool gun and well built, and who knows if more will come in. They ended up importing just under 100. We'll see. But, some people see negatives when they look at these. To me, I see friendship. I got the gun because of a friend. I got a lot of accessories because of, frankly, a new friend. It kind of allowed Flonder and I to become friends over the whole thing. So when I see it, I just think of the positive friendship relations that came out of this gun. And I'm very thankful to those who helped.
All right, HD18. First shots. Held open.
There were sparks flying out of that.
And for our last gun on the table at the moment, another one we've been waiting on, and I'm finally glad it's here, the Serbian Zastava PAP M90 PS. and we did a full review for 4th of July on this. And it really exceeded my expectations. I'll be honest, I wasn't planning on keeping one of these. I've got a number of AKs, and I just really wasn't in the mood. A lot's going on in life, and I just didn't. But I liked how it shot. J-Ro liked how it shot. It just kind of stuck. It's a nice gun. I really like this extended Hogue handguard. The mag pull grip and stock, you know, I think they fit the kind of modern form factor of this gun. It wouldn't be my choice, but, you know, they could have done, at least they didn't go cheap with the furniture like Century would have done. Nice blued finish. Proved to be very reliable out of the gate. Never really messed with the gas system. It was a lot of fun to have something, you know, new. The only other time we've seen the M90 come in was with an AR magwell instead of the original Rock and Lock. Zastava's also doing a fresh batch of M85s, including with a pick rail from the factory in the back and even a little pick rail on top, which actually will be one of the next guns we end up doing a range review of. So that was a lot of fun. Had a really good 4th of July. It was really good to be back out at the cabin this year. That place means a lot to me. And in fact, we did a couple of cabin special videos. One with my Romanian SAR-1 and one with my Colt LE6920. So that's my 8 guns. But my final 2 for this year are very special to me. Irreplaceable, priceless, frankly. And absolutely not military.
And last mag with the Zastava. It'll be held open.
In 2021, these were the most valuable, even priceless guns that were given to me. And in fact, the most valuable and priceless in my whole collection. We just looked at FNs, we just looked at BNTs, we looked at original Swiss SIGs. And this year we've shown you the HK SP5. Heck, we even just talked about what we all know to be an authentic Dragunov. All very interesting, very nice guns. And yet, these mean more to me. As some know, and I don't want to beat everyone over the head with it, that's not the point. But as some know, at the end of February 2021, my father, the man who raised me, passed away. He wasn't young, nearly 80, but it was very sudden. He went out the way he would have wanted to, with full faculties, even kind of cracking a joke at the end. I know, shocker, right, that I would come from a family that makes jokes. And my family's close. It has brought us closer. We've had each other. In fact, I was just there yesterday when I'm recording this video. I've done my best to be down. It's made it a rough year. And of course, he owned firearms. But he was a hunter, an occasional sports shooter, plinker, what have you. He wasn't interested in military guns as much. In fact, when I started buying guns, when I was 19 or 20, he kind of thought I was being a damn fool. I don't think he understood investment. He just saw that, hey, these are hundreds of, at that time, you could get a good sporting gun for $100 to $200, and he saw me buying $800 AR-15s and $400 Kalashnikovs and just couldn't quite grasp it. But, as any good parent will do with an adult child, you give them your opinion, and then you shut up and let them do their own thing. And later in life, he actually told me that he was proud and that I did the right thing, and, he never would have thought that kind of an investment, but I did. To his credit, his was in media, in newspaper. He ran in a newspaper that has been in business for over 110 years and is still in business after him, which is exactly what he would have wanted. He had, I don't know, 24 guns, and so we tried to split them evenly in the family based on, emotional connection and whatnot. And these are the two that have a very special place for me. We have a high standard double 9 W104 .22 long rifle, and we have a Stevens Model 94C chambered for 410. Let's start with the high standard. And I will do actual history and range videos with these, definitely at the cabin. That was my father's. He literally built it with his hands, and it was, I would say, his favorite place on earth. Because he was a business owner, we never really could go on extensive vacations when I was a kid, 3 or 4 days. But on the other hand, we had the mountains to go to, and we were there every couple of weekends in the summer, and he was there pretty much all the time in the winter for hunting season. Also, when we hit high school level, we were at the cabin at least twice a month on the weekends. I wonder what we were doing. Anyway, that's for another video. Now, the only other .22 handgun I own is actually another revolver. This North American Arms .22 short. And I actually mention it because this was a birthday gift from my father. I don't know, 10 years ago maybe? 12. Neat little gun. Kind of reminds me of a little jewel. It's just so nicely well made. We shoot it occasionally. But this gun was pretty much the first handgun, along with a Ruger standard, that I shot. And I shot it periodically growing up, and this was something he was very proud of. He only owned 2 handguns, both revolvers. The other one was a Ruger Blackhawk that my mother still has. She wanted to keep one of his. That's the one everyone suggested because he loved that gun. This one actually was from her. It was an anniversary gift. And thanks to people on my personal Misha channel, I posted a video 2 months ago, nearly to the day, asking for help identifying and learning things about these guns, because again, commercial, not military, not my wheelhouse. It was Boosted Banana and Cajun Catfish, amongst others, that helped me ID this based on the serial number. And it seems like it was made in relatively early 1965. That year started with serials just under 1,510,000. And 1966 started with serials just over 1,610,000. And so based on this serial number, yeah, it was made pretty early in 1965. And that makes sense because their anniversary is summertime. So, and a lot of these were made and sold for companies like Sears. I suspect it probably was purchased by my mother for him as a gift through Sears, because where they were living at the time, one of his good buddies worked with Sears, so it just would have made sense to go to him. It's a standard W104. It's got the fake stag grips, kind of gold plated. Typical 5.5-inch barrel. These are actually really good revolvers just in and of themselves. They have a good reputation. 9-shot, hence the 9 in the name. Spring-loaded ejector. Originally, they didn't have quite these features. The gun itself was introduced in 1958, and between that time and 1962, when the 104 was introduced, pretty much every year they would have a new model. They would correct a few things. They would also make some internal changes. It's also a single double action. I'm not going to dry fire it much. According to high standard, they counterbored the cylinder, which makes it safe to dry fire, unlike a lot of other rimfire guns, but I'm not going to do it much. But yeah, it's actually metal. Alloy frame, but it's metal. Steel cylinder. It's got some good heft and weight to it. My father was a big fan of Westerns. John Wayne, Clint Eastwood. So it makes sense that a Western style revolver. She even gave it to him with a embroidered leather holster with belt that had his name on it. But in typical My Family fashion, the leather worker who did the naming misspelled his last name by one character, because that's just how we roll. It's also why I'm not showing you the holster it comes with, because it does have a name on it, and we kind of do like our privacy, says the guy that does YouTube. But yeah, this means a lot to me. I grew up shooting it. It's nice to have a gift that one parent gave to another. And we will definitely shoot it one day and talk more about it. That's number 2. But number 1 has to be the Stevens. This is a true piece of Americana. This was a lot of people's first shotgun or even first gun to shoot. The Stevens Company dates back to the Civil War period. And they introduced their first single-shot shotguns in the 1870s. And the 22 revolver up here, 22 LR, that cartridge, 22 LR, was introduced to the world by the Stevens Company in 1887. And it was still owned by the family, by the original guy, up until the 1890s, and then it was sold and went into an investment group. And at the beginning of the 20th century, Stevens was the largest commercial sporting firearms manufacturer in the USA. Something they continued up until World War I. And you know the New England Westinghouse Mosin Nagants? Those were built by Stevens. Westinghouse wanted to get that contract in 1915. So they purchased the Stevens factory, the company, to build those Mosins, which they did successfully. Unfortunately, the deal kind of went south because of, the Tsar being kicked out. Let's put it like this. It went south for them, but it went a lot worse for the Romanov family. So basically, Westinghouse produced the guns, ended up having to sell them at cost or even loss. And so they were happy to sell Stevens on. And this is where the Savage name comes in. The Savage Company purchased Stevens around 1920, give or take, and started producing guns, which they continued to let Stevens kind of do its own thing up until World War II, at which time Stevens came directly under the authority of Savage, helping produce all kinds of guns in the war, including the number 4 Enfield. After the war, by 1946, they already returned to civilian sales. Now, what about this model here, the Model 94? Would it surprise you to learn that it was introduced in 1894, at least its progenitor, although they didn't officially put the name on the gun up until about 1939. It would go out of production after the start of World War I, but would be reintroduced around 1929, 1930, and certainly here in Arkansas and many other rural areas, this was a putting food on the table type gun. Single shot and double barrel shotguns were a multi-purpose tool, a very economical way to kill small, even medium game. And yeah, kept a lot of families fed. And in some ways, that's kind of how I ended up here. Like I said, they were producing these. And the reason I needed help was to try to date this. In March, April of 1949, they introduced a date code system. And on the personal channel video, we looked over this and we couldn't find the date code, which means this is probably built after World War II, but before 1949. It may be a 1949 gun, so we'll say it was built between 46 and 49. It's about the best we know. Because it says Jacoby Falls on it, we know it was built before the 60s, because the name changed on the gun, and then actually the factory itself was torn down in 1968. So that's the best guess. That's why I needed help and received help. I also want to give a special shout out to Roman's generic gun channel, because he's had kind of an equally rough year on the family front and helped me in that video as well. Barrel lengths on the 94s were 26 to 36 inches and all kinds of calibers, 12 gauge, 16 gauge, 20 gauge, and of course 410 here. It's a pretty standard break open single shot. It's kind of neat because the lever can actually be put to either side. It does have automatic ejection, unlike certain guns we've seen. Although you do have to manually cock the single action hammer. This one has the wood furniture, although Stevens would introduce a synthetic option in the 1940s that some people have. Rubber butt plate, wood furniture. Has a bead on the front. But one kind of neat feature, it actually has a rear sight machined into the receiver, not just a trough or lines, but an actual notch here, kind of almost rifle style. Kind of neat. Of course, it's old school steel. It is good for 3-inch 410 shells. But yeah, nice shotgun that a lot of people had time with. You know, we've never covered something quite like this on the channel. We mostly do military, but because of Jay's influence, and that's one reason he will be missed by me and you, I know. Well, for one thing, we'll miss his bump firing. For another, he did bring commercial guns onto the channel that I really enjoyed shooting. And the closest things we've kind of done to this, well, take a look from our video last year on these and enjoy a little nice range footage from a very pleasant spring day.
Ready?
Yep.
JW-20, or the combat shotgun from Doom 2. Mine didn't extract.
They don't. Your fingernails are your extractors.
I'm sure women love that.
Probably have an advantage, actually.
Unless it's like my wife when she breaks a nail. I guess I should also cook
Yep.
it.
Okay, you're good.
Ha, I can get that.
Is it clear? Chamber check.
I don't know. Hard to say.
I'll do two more.
Are you going to try to bump fire it?
No, the bump fire equivalent on this is not great. Clear.
Century PW87 lever action 12 gauge. Very first shots, and we have no idea what we're doing with the lever shotgun.
Okay, clear.
PW87. How about if I do that?
There you
still don't know why he couldn't bump fire that. I think he was just feeling lazy. What do you think? No, he really will be missed. Hopefully he'll come back around just like J-Ro who did. I really am appreciative for J-Ro for popping in. It was a very positive coincidence, and he's been very supportive this year too, because of course he knew my father from back in the college days. And yeah, if you can't tell, I've been putting this off a bit. It's hard to talk about this. Anyway, this has been in my family a long time. My father was raised by his grandparents. Let's just say his biological parents, difficult home life, including the fact that his mother had a major disability. She was actually deaf, 100%, which meant her and I communicating was a wee bit difficult. Yeah, a deaf person and a blind person walk into a bar. Yeah, make your jokes from there. But yeah, it was a little difficult for us. And his father had his own demons, using the bottom of a whiskey bottle. Anyway, so his grandparents effectively raised him, and his grandfather was a fish and game warden in Arkansas here. And that's where he probably knew this type of gun, and he gifted this to my father. I'm not sure if it was a birthday or just because. That's why I wanted to date it as best I could to know roughly when it was gifted. We don't know for sure, but we definitely know that he had it by the time he was a young man, even a teenager, because he met my mother when they were teenagers and he had it then. We don't know if his grandfather bought it new, or maybe it came off a poacher. You never know. One of those things lost to time. But it was one of his most prized guns because it came from his grandfather. And not just family heritage. This was really the gun that I was taught to shoot on. Little Misha at 4 years old. Of course, he helped. He was right there. But he taught me the basics, the fundamentals of everything with this. And of course, I shot it throughout my life, as did he. As you can tell, it has character. But it still shoots. All the springs work. And it is such a piece of him. Be back in a minute.
You'd be dead in the trenches by now.
Yeah. Not quite as noisy as a 12 gauge. More blast though. I'm gonna reload it.
So what you're saying is you want a top break 12 gauge revolver.
Right. That's what the world needs. Not only more top breaks, but just 12 gauge ones.
Exactly. Someone saw a judge and went, I'll do you one better.
Yeah. I forgot how. This thing hits really low. Such a short range, so I always forget that. Clear?
That's kind of where we're at. And we're starting to lose some daylight. Couldn't have asked for nicer weather for this holiday weekend. I really couldn't. It's a rarity. It really is. Bonk. There are fish in the pond. And the creek back there is still running. Had a lot of rain.
Little range footage for you there. I'm back. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's been in my family a long time, and so much sentimental value. And it's a good gun, too, from a company with so much American history. So, all around. See, I can do commercial guns sometimes. And we'll do a range review. I wonder if he could bump fire this. But it's kind of how 2021 has been. Yeah, it started off rough. I think January 6th and all that. No matter which side of the spectrum anyone was on, it was a rough start to the year. February was certainly rough, and March, and then there's been various bits of gun drama. For me, May was good because that's when that big batch of Swiss guns came in, and it was a welcome distraction. I've always found work to be a good salve, a good balm, a good distraction. And then had a really good 4th of July with friends and family at the cabin. And then we got into the fall, and wife got a new job, and that's going well. So as rough as things have been on several fronts, I do, and you do too. We have things to be thankful for, and that's the point of this holiday. And, the future's unknown. I'm doing my best to keep the channel going and to have new content for everyone. But keep in mind my own physical limitations. I do apologize for them, but there's some things I just cannot help. But have been working on trying to get some collaborations set up. At least we've recorded a couple of them with other channels. And just try to vary things up. Like I said, I do have my personal channel, Misha, where I talk more about military history and models and stuff. I'll put a link because 2 months ago I did post a video with these two guns going more into detail about the guns themselves. And also my personal history and so if you're interested in that, you can share. And if you're not, heck, I don't blame you. Why would you care about a stranger's, personal life? But in case you're bored, maybe at home, sick in bed or something at one time, I'll put the link in so you can visit my personal channel. I do what I call black box videos over there. Just kind of ramblings and what have yous. But those are kind of the top 10 guns I'm thankful for that have come my way in 2021. As we roll into December, I don't anticipate many more. Maybe a couple might come in towards the tail end, but more likely they'll get pushed to 2022. So with that, I'd love to hear what you're thankful for, be it firearms or just anything else in life. Let's have a good, pleasant discussion in the comments as the turkey does its thing in our bellies. I greatly appreciate you tuning in. I sincerely do. I appreciate all the support on YouTube and Patreon. You guys have meant a lot to me this year, especially. So please understand it's a sincere thank you from Misha, from Mishaco. And feel free to comment anytime. If you'd like to help support the channel, the Patreon link is always there. $1 and up, you can do the Q&A thing. $5 and up, get a little more access and whatnot. And $10 and up, you kind of get a direct helpline for what it's worth for gun stuff. But if you can't, I understand. It's been a financially trying time. I had to sell quite a few personal guns in 2020 myself, which is why I've tried to replace a couple in 2021. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. There we are. This is Misha, wishing you a happy holiday, and I'll catch you very soon next time.